G'day everyone, B Agent Dad here. We're going to have a look at this Dell Optiplex 7780 All-in-One. It's a 27-inch All-in-One computer, which means the computer is built part of the display itself. So this is really good for businesses as well as home use as well, who pretty much want a computer that's not hanging around and make it look nice and neat. So it's definitely a great looking computer there for sure. So we're going to have a look into the features of this computer as well as temperatures, fan noise, and we'll also look at the speakers as well, and we'll actually open this computer up so you can have a look at the internals as well too. We'll be putting timestamps along this video so you can skip to the different sections that you may be interested in. Let's start with what this computer can be configured with. Now first off is the processor. Now it is using the 10th generation Intel core, and you can configure with either an i3, an i5, or an i7, or even an i9. Now as for RAM wise, it can go up to a maximum capacity of 64 gigs of RAM, and that's running off 2 sole DIMM slots, so you can upgrade later on if you want to, if you're only using 1 DIMM slot. As for storage wise, it's got 2 slots of M.2 SSD, and you can fit in a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive as well too. Now of course it's got Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. As for graphics wise, of course it has the Intel integrated graphics, but you can configure it with and discrete graphics, which is the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650 as well. So you can actually play some games on that computer as well and use it for some rendering as well. So that's not too bad at all. Now as for the display, of the brightness of the display, you can get 2 types. They're both full HD displays, and you can get either a touch version or a non-touch version, and both are rated to 250 nits of brightness. Now I've got the non-touch version right here, which we'll test out later on for the display. Looking at the ports on the back, starting on the top left, we've got the Kensington lock slot, and then on the left hand side we've got the HDMI in port. Now what the HDMI in port means, you can actually plug in a computer to this all-in-one and use this all-in-one as if it's just a monitor. So you won't be using the computer section, you're just using the display here. So that's what the HDMI in port is for. And then right next to that is the HDMI out port. So this is where you make this connect another monitor to it to make a dual screen, and you're still using the computer section of this computer. Now this will be, if you just use the integrated graphics, it is HDMI 1.4b, and if you've got the discrete graphics configured into this all-in-one, it will then be HDMI version 2.0. And after that, we've got the full-size display port. Now that's version 1.4, and then we have the RJ45 Ethernet port, and then we got 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. Now the ones on the left hand side have smart power on, which means you can actually charge other stuff through that, or you can turn it on. And then we've got the line audio out port, and then we've got the power connector, and right next to that is the power supply unit status indicator light. Looking on the left hand side of the computer, we've got the headphone jack, and then we've got the full-size SD card reader, and then we got the USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port, and then we have a USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port. Now this one also has power share as well. The 7780 does come with a 1080p webcam, which is really good because 1080p webcam, which means we're going to get some good quality of video conferencing as well. We can actually do some content creation using that webcam as well too, which is fantastic. Now you may ask, where is this webcam? It's actually located on the top. It's actually hidden away nicely there from Dell, and it's a matter of a little push on the top and you'll see it pop up, and it is IR version as well too. This is a recording from the 1080p webcam from the 7780 all-in-one. Now this is the video and audio unedited, so you can actually see and hear what it feels like. Now I actually have 2 types of lights currently turned on. We've got one of my studio lights turned on, and also have the downlights in this room turned on for ambient light as well too. So I'm going to turn off my studio light, and hopefully you'll see this thing adjust for the ambient light here, if it does. Now I do have 2 downlights in front of me, which are quite far away, and also I've got 2 downlights behind me as well. So in an office environment, you actually should get a lot better lighting than what I actually currently have right now. So this is actually considered quite dark here. So I'm going to actually turn on my studio light back on and see that adjust. And I'd love to actually hear what your thoughts are of this 1080p webcam. And of course, with better lighting, better image quality as well. The 7780 Allman does come with an height adjustable stand, and you can push it up and down. Now at its lowest point from the top of the monitor to the base of the table, it measures in at 44.5 centimeters, and at its highest point, when this is fully extended up to the top, so the top of the monitor to the base, it measures in at 54 centimeters. I'm hoping that helps you out. If it does, smack that like button for me. Now it can also, of course, it can swivel on the flare, which is really good because the swivel is actually done at the base of the monitor, and it is a separate part, so actually the big base of it is actually not moving. So when I actually swivel this, which is great, it's actually not moving the base as well. So that's fantastic, because sometimes I've had some other monitors where the base actually completely moves, and I've had coffee and that's actually knocked it over. So it's great to see that doesn't actually move it. And of course it can do tilt as well. It's not massive amount of angle to the bottom, of course, but it does do a fair bit of tilt, which is great there to see. And of course, like I say, it can do swivel, and of course you can actually do rotate as well too, to its portrait mode, and it only rotates one method there as well too. So you can actually do rotation for portrait mode or keep it in landscape. I like to mention you can remove the height adjustable stand, and the back plate is Visa mount compatible as well. So you can put this on monitor arms, which makes this look a very nice, neat setup if for a lot of work office space, or even for home office as well too. There are two speakers located on the bottom bar of the computer, and they are 5-watt speakers. And when I tested out the maximum peak volume of the speakers, it managed to measure it in at 89.1 decibels. So that's pretty loud. It's actually quite loud. Even I have to step back to actually listen to these speakers here. As for the sound quality of the speakers, now this was a bit of a surprise for me. It had a lot of bass, so much space that it really surprised me how much bass there was, and the bass had a lot of clarity in it as well too. So it wasn't distorting it had really good bass on this computer. And as for the mids, that's probably where it lacked a little bit in. It's there, but didn't have as much clarity as the bass. And same with the highs as well. It didn't have that much clarity in the highs. It starts to distort a little bit, as of course when you actually put it at peak volume there. Now as for the acoustic, it was actually really nice. I really enjoy the speakers. They're like, especially if it's more like a business class computer, you definitely won't have issues doing video conferencing because it's quite loud, and it's actually got quite a bit of clarity, for I can say, for voice there. When you're playing music, which is what I was doing, that's where you start to hear the clarity a little bit missing in the mids there. But else, quite good speakers. Just took me quite a bit there. So I definitely give these speakers a thumb up for sure. As for the temperatures and fan noise of this computer here, when I took the measurement, my ambient temperature was 25 degrees Celsius. Of course, we're in summer here in Australia, and I did the base measurement when this computer was on idle, and the maximum temperature on the display was 38 degrees Celsius, and as for the fan noise, it only hit a maximum of 31 decibels, so practically quiet. Then I put the computer on 20% load, so that's what you'll be doing for average office productivity work, as well as surfing the web and streaming videos as well. And the maximum temperature on the display or anywhere of the computer, it managed to measure in at 38.5 degrees Celsius, and as for the fan noise, it went up to a maximum of 33 decibels. Then I put the computer on 50% load, and the maximum temperature of this computer was 40 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it hit a maximum of 52 decibels. So you start to hear this well up a fair bit. Then I put the computer at 100% load, and the maximum temperature it hit was 44 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, hit a maximum of 55 decibels. So you do actually hear this computer quite a bit, especially once it hits after 50% load. Now this is a consistent workload, and also get a consistent fan noise as well. Once it hits 50%, it just stays a consistent fan noise. So it's not going winding up or winding down, it just stays a consistent fan noise, which is actually not too bad. It's actually quite bearable, and it's not like a very high pitch whine sound. It's actually quite a bit of low drown sound there. So it's actually quite bearable for sure when this computer has its fan going off I like to mention the airflow of this computer here. Now, after my stress test of this computer here, I found where the airflow goes. So the exhaust is actually located on the top left of the display. You'll see some grooves on top here, and that's where the exhaust pretty much pushes all the hot air out. Now, there are also grooves on the bottom corners as well, so left and right of the bottom, those are pretty much your breathe holes, and on the top right is also a breathe hole here. So you'll see the breathe hole goes from here and from the other side, and it pretty much just all comes over here and then pushes all the way back out here. So that's how the airflow is. So definitely don't cover the top left of this display. I know some people like to put ornaments or hang things away. It's probably not a good idea on this computer. You could obstruct it, but just to give you a fair warning there, to get optimal airflow there, just don't block, especially don't block the top left, so it can actually expel the heat of this computer here. Looking at the stability performance of the processor in the 7780 All-in-One. Now this one's configured with an i7-10700 processor with a base clock speed of 2.9 gigahertz. Now this computer's been running on pretty much 100% load, so that's a processor, RAM, hard drive, and also the discrete graphics, pretty much running at 100% for over 3.5 hours now. And I can tell you the processor speed is mostly anywhere between 3.5 gigahertz to about 3.9 gigahertz. So that's still quite high there. And of course, it's above the 2.9 gigahertz, so it doesn't have thermal throttling. And as for turbo throttling, it's not that much neither. So it's actually maintaining quite a high processing speed for over 3.5 hours. And as for the core temperature, you can see it's averaging anywhere between 95 to around about 98 degrees Celsius. So that's pretty much at its thermal limit, which safe limits that is. And so it's actually doing quite well, I've got to admit, for this processor. Let's have a look at the processor behavior for burst speed, so basically maintaining high clock speeds and see how long it is. So I'm going to start putting the processor on load, and I'll start the clock as well, and we can actually see the processor is sitting around about 4.59 gigahertz. Now when this drops below say about 4 gigahertz, I'll then stop the clock watch, so about 4.2 gigahertz. Well, right, there we go, stopped it. So looking around about 14 to about 15 seconds, and I'm going to keep this running for a little bit so you can see the behavior of this processor. So I can see it's about 4, it's going to jump back to 4, and then it's about 3.7, 3.9 gigahertz. And I know about 3.7, 3.9 gigahertz is its stability performance over long periods of time. So it's pretty much within probably about 30 seconds, it's going to sit around about its comfortable zone for speed wise. So I hope this is actually very helpful for you. If it did, smack that like button for me. As for the display, it is a full HD display. I do wish to actually have a 4K version of the display or higher resolution, be fantastic. It is a 27-inch sort of display anyway, so I think they've got plenty of real estate to be able to offer more configurations. But as you can see, the bezels on this is quite narrow. That's bezel across the sides, the top and bottom is actually quite even, and it's very, very narrow as well too. So I actually quite like that. And as for the brightness, 250 nits of brightness will do you fine in the office and home environment, but if you're sitting there close to the window, I wish you actually can be able to configure this with a little bit more brightness, like around about the 400 or 500 nits of brightness would be fantastic. Just to bring up some options there would be great from Dell. Testing out the color gamut coverage of the full HD non-touch display for the 7780 All-in-One, it measured in at 80.8% sRGB gamut coverage, and then we got 58.7% Adobe RGB coverage and 61.5% DCI P3 coverage. So you'll find on the Dell Optiplex 7780 All-in-One, there is no physical buttons on the computer to actually change the brightness or the contrast, or even bring up the OSD that you normally would see in a monitor to actually change the brightness of the display. Now, and if you go to the Windows display, brightness and color, pretty much it's easy, just right click and go display settings and bring this thing up, and you'll find if you can change this, move the slider around for the brightness, it may not actually work at all. At the moment I've got it working, so you'll see that there is brightness display. But I'll just show you how to get this one working there. And pretty much what you do need to do is go to the Dell support site and of course type in your 7780 all-in-one and find the drivers and downloads section here. So what you need to do is select the category to application, and you may have to scroll all the way down, and if you need to expand it, you just expand it. What you're looking for is the Dell on-screen display application, and you just download that, install that. Once you install it, you need to reboot the computer, and once you reboot the computer, you can then find that the display settings brightness will then start working, so that will actually change the brightness of the display. You also find in the notification area there will be another slider for brightness as well, so you'll find that will be doing the exact same thing. That's the quick way of doing it as well too. Let's have a look at the internals. First off, we've got to remove the stand. Now to remove the stand is pretty easy. You just got to lift this lever up, push it upwards, and then you can just lift this up completely, and then of course slide it back down, and that's as quick as you can see how easy that is to actually remove the stand. After you remove the stand, it's just a matter of pushing this lever down here, and then you can just pretty much one finger slide this thing up, and then you can then remove the back cover quite easily, as you can see. So straight away you can see we've got a dim door, so that's probably underneath this will be where you can easily access the RAM. So I'm just going to open it up so you can see that. So you can see you've got two DIMM slots there for the SODIMM RAM, and you can probably not need to actually remove that if you're just upgrading RAM. Now over here is the 2.5-inch SATA hard drive. Again, you can just push this down and you can quickly remove this tray here, and again it's toolless as well too. So, and then I can see the headers here for the power, SATA power, and the SATA headers is right here, so you actually don't need to do anything to remove this back plate here, but I will remove the back plate. So I'm just going to put this one back in so you can see what happens here. Now this back plate is held in by 5 screws. I'll remove 4 of them already, and I'm just going to remove the last one now just to make it easy. And these are your typical Phillips heads, so it's quite easy to do. So once that's removed, you can just pretty much just lift this up from the bottom and then lift this up completely. So that's nice and easy to do. Once you remove the shielding cover, we can see on the top right hand corner is the M.2 SSD hard drive, and then right down below there of course is the RAM slots. Right below there is another PCIe M.2. Now this is probably for 223 series because it's a very short one. And then here we've got the CMOS battery, and then here's probably the processor down this side here, and then we've got the GPU running here as well too. So CPU and then the GPU, and then down underneath this shielding plate is the Wi-Fi card here. And then up here, of course, is the power supply. And again, that's where the fan is for the power supply as well. And below this one here, shielding plate, is the webcam. And of course, we've got the webcam header right here. And again, you can see, I'm just going to remove this one here just so you can see the better for the headers for the SATA. I did perform the benchmarks for this particular 7780 all-in-one. Now this one's configured with an i7 10700 processor with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of SSD hard drive M.2, as well as the GeForce GTX 1650 graphics card in there as well too. So I'll put up the scores for Passmark, Citybench R15 and R20, PC Mark 10, 3D Mark, Crystal Disk Mark, Geekbench, MATLAB 2020B, and Spec View Pref. Dell has done quite a nice job on the Dell Optiplex 7780 all-in-one. Now as the display, it's been fantastic, but I do wish it had a bit more brightness, or you can actually configure with more brightness than 250. About the 400 or 500 would be fantastic, as well as provided options for maybe about 4K options. Since this is a 27-inch, it definitely has the real estate to be able to do 4K for the people who want to do video editing or even photo editing as well too. So, or even doing a lot of graphics as well as working on professional work. So the 4K does help well special screen real estate. So definitely nice to see that. And as for everything else, it seems to be quite a nice computer to work with. It is a little bit loud when it starts to get going, but if you're just doing average use, you won't actually get this thing going on anyway. So it's actually quite quiet when that is happening. But also, it's got a very nice design. Ergonomically, it's fantastic. It's also having a nice built-in webcam definitely helps with the video conferencing as well for your home and business use as well too. So definitely, I can definitely recommend this computer for anyone out there as well as businesses. Great computer there. Now, if you find this video informative or enjoyed it, smack that like button for me. Even support me, smack that like button for me. If you haven't done already, subscribe to my channel, hit that subscribe button as well. I do try to upload a new video every week. And just remember, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. I'll see you next video.